y arriba, por ti seré, por ti seré, por ti seré. Yo no soy marinero, yo no soy marinero, soy capitán, soy capitán, soy capitán. Bamba, 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 para bailar la bamba.
Hello, students! So today we are going to be learning about the Mexican culture. Has anyone here ever been to Mexico? Me neither! But I have seen pictures and it is beautiful there. So hopefully one day I'll be able to go. Maybe one day you'll go. So, has anyone heard of a sombrero? Yes, you're right. It is a hat. But you know what? There are so much more things to this hat than just being a sombrero. And as you notice, I am wearing my sombrero today during this class. So, we are going to be completing a class KWL chart. And I have it here. We're going to do what do we know? What do we know about Mexico or sombreros? What do we want to know about it? There's so many things we want to know, right? And we'll put what did we learn? So you will have everybody has a couple notepads, note cards on their desk, and you will need to write on one of them, what do you know? It can be, I know where Mexico is, or whatever you know about Mexico or sombrero, okay? And then I want you on the other one to write, what do you know? Or what do we want to know? Sorry. What do we want to know? Okay? So you can have as many as you want, and when you finished, please hand them to me and we will put on the board. Alrighty, we are back. So now we are going to look at the displays that I have created to learn a little bit more about sombreros and the Mexican culture. Okay, so Mexico is located south of the United States. And I have a picture over here of Mexico on the display. So when you come and look at the display, you will be able to see it a little bit better, okay? So, sombreros. Sombrero is a wide brim hat that is made from straw. There are some other ones that are made with like cardboard, but this one is straw, and that's what they first originally made them with. Okay, and wonder why they made it with a wide brim. Well, they made it with a wide brim because Mexican workers worked all day in the sun, and they needed shade. They needed some shade from that sun, so they created these large, wide brim hats to keep the shade. Keep the sun from beaming on them all day, and keep that sun out of their eyes, and even bigger ones to keep them off their shoulders. Okay? So, here is a picture of a sombrero. This one's a little bit fancier than what mine is, right? And there's also some over here that I have put on there. But the fancier ones are originally the mariachi bands wear those. Now, mariachi band is a music group with 4 or more musicians that wear charro suits and sombreros. Now, a charro suit is tight, fashionable clothing that they wear, like their pants and a short jacket, and then some silk ties worn with a sombrero. So here's 3 men. They've got their guitar, they're ready to play, and they've got their sombreros. Here's one. You can tell he is singing, but his sombrero is a little bit, kind of looks like mine in the picture. It's a little bit simpler than those. And here's a picture of a man. He's got, it looks like the original sombrero. It's just plain straw, okay? And he is actually wearing, what he's wearing, it's like a poncho, which ponchos are a thick cloth that have a hole in the middle to put through for their head to put through. And our next lesson, we will be learning more about ponchos, okay? And here is the Mexican hat dance. The Mexican hat dance is a dance that the men in there wore sombreros. And it was a dance between men and women that were very intimate, that they would dance, and by the end of the dance, the women would grab the sombrero from the men and wear it on top. That was at the end of the dance. So that is a picture of them dancing. And you might wonder, who is this man over here? Well, this is Emilio Zapata. He was a leader that first wore a sombrero. So he was the first leader that wore a sombrero while he rode his horse. And they used to originally, horseback riders would wear the sombreros. Because as you're riding, just like how the men were working, they wanted to keep the sun out of their eyes, right? Okay, so we have learned a little bit about the different sombreros and what they are used for, who wears them, and whatnot. Here is a example that I created, okay? There is a sombrero that I have created. I've also created another one that we will look here in a little bit. But as you see, I'm wearing my sombrero. And here are some mini ones that these were so cute. And these ones are made out of straw, so you can see. Okay. My cat wore one of them, so you'll get to see a picture of that later. And also there's some different books that deal with sombreros. Like here's a puppy dog wearing one, right? Okay. Now we are going to watch a video on how straw sombreros were made. Let me go back here.
The word sombrero is derived from the Spanish sombra, which means shade. The expansive brim of these Mexican hats is designed to cast a wide shadow over the face, neck, and shoulders. Fancier sombreros are made of felt. Regular ones are woven out of straw. This workshop makes traditional straw sombreros in many styles. This model's called a Winston. This one, an Americano. Here's the Speedy, after the cartoon mouse Speedy Gonzales. And the Cassidy. These sombreros are handcrafted. The straw is white palm leaves, purchased from a supplier in the region. First, workers soak a bunch of palm leaves in water for a minute or so to soften them up. Then, using a needle, they tear strips about a ½ centimeter wide. They take 3 strips at a time and braid them together into a single strand. They intertwine several braided strands, making a long braided straw rope. Then they feed this rope into a manually operated press. The press flattens the rope until it's just about 1 millimeter thick. This flattening makes the coarse rope soft enough to sew. With the raw material prep work done, hat construction can begin. They take the rope and wind it in concentric circles, sewing one circle to the next. They first make a flat base, then turn the base on its side and keep sewing until they've formed the cup, the part of the sombrero that sits on the head. They place the cup over a form to check the size. Then they resume sewing on more straw rope, working outward now to form the hat's brim. Brim width varies by style. They measure to make sure it's the correct size. Once the sombrero is finished, they boil water, pour in gelatin, stir until it's completely dissolved, then soak the hat for about a minute. The gelatin penetrates the straw fibers. Then they hang the sombrero out to dry in the sun for about 3 hours. The workshop has a steel mold for each sombrero style it produces. Workers place the sombrero on the appropriate one in a hot press, then close the press for 3 minutes. The heat and pressure combined form the straw to the mold's shape. The heat also hardens the gelatin, locking in the shape permanently. Many sombreros have a decorative band encircling the base of the cup. This band, called a scarf, is handcrafted, typically out of leather, or like this one, out of maguey, a fiber from the stalk of a tropical plant native to Mexico. A few dabs of glue hold the scarf in place. Once a sombrero is finished, the workshop tags it with a certificate stating the model and serial number. Sombrero shapes can vary significantly, but they all share a common characteristic, a wide brim to protect from the blazing sun. Certain models have an extra feature, a cord or leather drawstring, so the hat doesn't fly away in windy weather.
Alrighty, here is another video of a decorative sombrero and how it was created.
The sombrero is a traditional Mexican hat with a large brim that's designed to cast a wide shadow over the face and shoulders. Everyday sombreros are made of straw, but mariachi bands and other folkloric performers wear fancier ones made of velvet, wool, or felt with elaborate decorations. These fancy sombreros are produced primarily as decorative tourist souvenirs. Artisans construct and decorate each one entirely by hand. They start by positioning a sun-shaped cutting die at the center of a large sheet of thick paper. As the press closes, the die slices through, making a hole. Next, they sandwich the sheet between two fiery hot sombrero-shaped forms. These mold the paper to the shape of the hat's brim. They trim off the excess and stitch the perimeter to reinforce the edge. They soak the brim in a gelatin solution and lay it out in the sun to dry to stiffen the paper. They fold a sheet of paper and die cut another shape. They sew the far ends together to form a circle. This will form the top of the sombrero, called the cup. They spread glue along the base where it attaches to the brim. They also apply glue to a paper circle. Then they place the cup on the same hot form they used to mold the brim. After shaping the cup, they reinforce the top with the paper circle. The sombrero is now fully constructed. The next step is to cover it in fabric. They coat the surface with glue, then, section by section, adhere pieces of velvet or felt. They start with the cup. The fabric has been pre-cut and sewn to the correct shape. The next section is the brim's underside. They trim off the excess fabric with a razor blade and cut away the fabric over the cup. Next, a piece to cover the top of the brim. Throughout the fabric application process, he's careful to pull the material taut and smooth it down. A final trimming, and the sombrero is fully covered. Elsewhere in the factory, automated machines weave spools of polypropylene string and metallic plastic string into colorful trim. Artisans in the decoration department cut out paper motifs and cover them in trim. Then they make colorful appliques by sewing the motifs and sequins onto velvet-covered paper shapes. They glue these appliques onto the sombrero. Finally, they glue trim where the applique edges and hat surface meet. This holds the edges down and finishes them off nicely. On pricier sombreros, all the decorations are sewn by hand, no glued-on appliques. The artisans complete every sombrero with the fabric lining in the cup, then an under-the-chin drawstring, handy for wearing or hanging this Mexican memento.
Alrighty, we are back. So I hope you enjoyed that little video of getting to learn how they created these sombreros. I thought it was a neat little video. So now that we have learned some things about sombreros in the Mexican culture, we are going to use our Post-it notes, that you should still have some, and we're going to write what we have learned, okay? So go ahead and write on your Post-it notes some things that you have learned about sombreros in the Mexican culture. Hand them to me when you are finished. Hello. So now that we have created our KWL chart together, and here's our Post-it notes that we have up, we can go around and look at them later if you would like to. Now for our art lesson. Today we are going to be creating a sombrero. Who would have guessed, right? So I'm going to go over. Everybody will have a step-by-step handout, okay, on their desks, and also another little handout that has the criteria as well as cleanup procedures, okay? And your rubric, that will be on the thing as well, okay? So supplies we will need. You will need some construction paper, which I will hand to you. You will need a pencil, a ruler, scissors. We are going to use tempera paints. So remember, when we are using paints, we do not put them in our mouth, okay? And we are appropriate with them. We do not get them all. Try not to get them all over the table. If you have an accident, it's okay. We will wipe it up, okay? We will be using paintbrushes, a cup of water. Make sure you are very careful with the cup of water and you don't spill it, okay? You will also be using sequins or other embellishments to decorate your sombrero. And you will need some glue, of course, for your sequences, okay? So our step one, we're going to draw a sombrero. And then step two, you start designing. Step three, once you've got your design, you will start painting, okay? Step four, you will let your paint dry. So once the paint is dry, you can put your sequins or the other embellishments of your choice on them if you would like. Then finally, you will cut your sombrero from the construction paper. And then finally, you are done with your sombrero. And once you let it dry for a while, we have a photo booth that you will be able to take your sombrero and take a picture with it in the photo booth, okay? So that is a little bit of the step-by-step. Let's head over to our tables and let's create some sombreros. Hello, everybody. So now that we have gotten to our tables and got all of our supplies, here's some supplies. Got the water, scissors. Here is the paint that was already a little bit in there for all of them. Some glue. Here's some thingies, and then I have these other little pom-poms. Here's my ruler. Here's some different paintbrushes, my pencil, okay? And I just used a white piece. I just got a white one, okay? So now we are going, step one, we are going to draw our sombrero on our construction paper using a pencil and our ruler to make really neat lines, okay? Because we are making neat lines because that is in our criteria. Let's go over our criteria. Our criteria says there must be a variety of lines and shapes on your sombrero. Okay? The line and shapes must be used by a ruler. You must use at least 3 different colors on your sombrero. Okay? That is another criteria. Your sombrero must be cut neatly, painted neatly. Okay? Don't just slop it on there and call it done. You need to cut your sombrero out just like it is how you drew it, okay? And make sure your name is on the back of your sombrero, and you also created the sombrero in a respectful and appropriate manner using all the supplies, okay? So let's go ahead and get started on drawing our sombreros for number 1. Alrighty, so now I have drew my sombrero. I know it's lightly because it's in pencil. See a little bit of there, okay? So step 2, we are going to start designing our sombrero using our pencil and our ruler, okay? Remember, you must have a variety of shapes and lines. And I got these are my other examples that I had did before. See, I use triangles, squares, and I use a lot of different lines, okay? So there's that one. Here's another one that I did to show you the variety of lines, okay? So that is what we are going to be designing. So go ahead and get started on that. Alrighty, here is my design and my pencil. I use my ruler and I have a variety of different lines and shapes. Okay, so there was that one. Okay, so now that I have my design, I can start painting. Remember, I am using at least three different colors. Okay, so let's begin painting. Alrighty, I have finished painting my sombrero. I left some things white, but that's okay. So there was mine. So now I'm going to let it dry. So, step 4 says let your paint dry. Then once your paint dries, you may add your sequins or your other embellishments, okay? So, give that time to dry. Alrighty, my sombrero has dried, and I didn't want to add any embellishments and whatnot, and that was okay because it didn't require. So, here is my, oh, hold on, grab it here. Here is my sombrero. Now I'm going to go take pictures in the photo booth of my sombreros that I created. So, remember, you may go and take pictures in your photo booth one at a time when you finish your sombrero. Alrighty, so we had so much fun creating a sombrero. So while they are drying, we're going to do a little conclusion activity on some of the content information that we have learned so far, okay? So I'm actually going to use my sombrero. Here's probably a wreck now. That's okay. So I'm going to use my sombrero. I have a couple questions here that I'm going to put down my sombrero. And I would have students come and pick them up to choose a question out of there and have enough for everybody. So here's a question. Why were sombreros created? Does anybody know why they were created? I think we have learned. Right. Sombreros were created for the Mexican workers who were outside working in the sun all day, so they would have some shade from the sun. Good. See, the next one was. What was the importance of the sombreros in the Mexican culture? Right. Yeah, it's kind of like that. They're important because for the workers, they need to keep the shade out. And horseback riders, good job. So there's a little bit of importance. Okay. Are there different types of sombreros? Is there only ones like mine? No, that's right. There are a bunch of different ones, actually. All right, last question here. What were some special occasions that sombreros were worn at? Good. Birthdays, that's one. Parties, festivals, good. Who can tell me who wore sombreros? Besides me. Mariachi bands, great job. Well, I am so excited that we have learned a little bit about the Mexican culture and a sombrero. Next lesson, we will be learning about ponchos, okay? And we will also be creating a poncho, and you'll get to take a picture with your poncho, and then once you're finished, you can take a picture with your sombrero and your poncho together. It's going to be a great time.
Para bailar la bamba, para bailar